Broken promises. The autumn rain pelted against the windows as Olivia Harrison stared at the message on her phone, reading it for the fifth time. The words hadn't changed, but she hoped their meaning might somehow shift if she looked at them long enough. I can't do this anymore. The pregnancy, the responsibility, it's not what I signed up for. I've met someone who understands me. I'm sorry. Olivia placed her hand over her slightly rounded belly, 4 months of new life growing inside her. Just yesterday, Nathan had kissed her goodbye before his business trip to Seattle. His cologne still lingered on the pillow beside her. 8 years of marriage dissolved in a text message while he was supposedly closing a deal with investors. She tried calling him, but the call went straight to voicemail. 3 times. 4. By the 5th attempt, she understood he wouldn't answer. The ultrasound photo they'd gotten last week sat on the refrigerator, held by a magnet from their honeymoon in Bali. Baby Harrison, written in the corner with a smiley face Nathan had drawn himself. What happened to you? She whispered to the empty kitchen. What happened to us? The doorbell rang, startling her from her trance. For a brief, hopeful moment, she thought it might be Nathan, perhaps regretting his message, coming home to apologize. Instead, she opened the door to find Paige, Nathan's assistant, looking uncomfortable on the doorstep. Olivia, I'm so sorry. Nathan asked me to bring these by. She handed over a manila envelope. He said you'd understand. Inside were divorce papers, already signed by Nathan, and his wedding ring. No note. No explanation beyond the impersonal text. Just legal documents ending their marriage with his signature freshly dried on the dotted line. Did you know? Olivia asked, her voice barely audible above the rain. About the other woman? Paige shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa, she's a client from the New York office. They've been seeing each other for 3 months. 3 months. Since before the pregnancy. While they were still trying for a baby, their dream, or so she thought. After Paige left, Olivia sank to the floor, envelope clutched against her chest. Their wedding photo stared down at her from the wall, Nathan dipping her on a beach at sunset, both laughing as if they had forever. She hadn't cried yet. The shock had formed a protective bubble around her emotions. The next morning, Olivia woke to her phone ringing. Her mother's name flashed on the screen. Honey, I just heard from Catherine that Nathan's moved in with some woman in New York. Please tell me that's just another one of her ridiculous rumors. Catherine, Nathan's mother. So he'd told his family but couldn't face telling her himself. It's true, Mom. The words felt foreign on her tongue. Oh, sweetheart, your father and I can be there by tonight. No, Olivia said firmly. I need to handle this myself. What she didn't tell her mother was that her parents' retirement fund was already stretched thin. They couldn't afford to fly across the country to comfort their daughter, and she wouldn't ask them to. That afternoon, a text from Nathan. I'll send money for the baby. Vanessa and I are moving to London next month. Her father offered me a position at his investment firm. Olivia didn't respond. Instead, she contacted her obstetrician to change her emergency contact information and slowly began removing Nathan's presence from their home. Now her home. She had 2 months before the next mortgage payment, 2 months to figure out how to support herself and her child alone, with her freelance graphic design work barely covering groceries. As she folded Nathan's clothes into donation boxes, she found the business card in his jacket pocket. Theodore Blackwood, CEO, Blackwood Enterprises. A handwritten note on the back read, Call if you reconsider our offer. Nathan had mentioned turning down a job opportunity last month. Too demanding, he'd said. Too much travel. Olivia held the card, wondering if bridges could be rebuilt after being burned, unaware that this small rectangular piece of paper would change the trajectory of her broken life. Gathering courage. Olivia stared at Theodore Blackwood's business card for 3 days before finally gathering the courage to call. With her savings dwindling and pregnancy-related fatigue making her freelance work increasingly difficult, she needed to explore every option. The receptionist at Blackwood Enterprises sounded surprised when Olivia mentioned her connection. Mr. Blackwood rarely gives out his direct contact information. One moment, please. Moments later, a deep, measured voice came through the line. Theodore Blackwood speaking. Hello, Mr. Blackwood. My name is Olivia Harrison, my husband. She caught herself. My ex-husband, Nathan Harrison, mentioned meeting with you about a position last month. A brief pause. Yes, I remember Nathan. Talented designer, but he declined our offer. May I ask why you're calling, Mrs. Harrison? Olivia took a deep breath. I'm a graphic designer as well. More experienced than Nathan, actually. I taught him most of what he knows. She hadn't meant to add that last part, but pregnancy hormones had loosened her filter. I understand you're looking for someone with expertise in branding and visual identity. Another pause, longer this time. I see. Your timing is interesting, Mrs. Harrison. We're launching a new product line in 6 months and still need someone to lead the visual direction. Would you be available to meet tomorrow morning? Bring your portfolio. The following day, Olivia dressed carefully to accommodate her growing belly while maintaining a professional appearance. She chose a navy maternity dress and a cream blazer, pulling her chestnut hair into a neat bun. Her portfolio, meticulously updated the night before, felt heavy in her hands as she entered the sleek glass headquarters of Blackwood Enterprises. Theodore Blackwood wasn't what she expected. In his early 40s, he had salt and pepper hair despite his relatively young age, keen gray eyes that missed nothing, and an unexpected kindness in his expression. No wedding ring, she noticed automatically, then chided herself for looking. Mrs. Harrison, thank you for coming. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Ms. Spencer, actually, she corrected him. I'm reverting to my maiden name. He nodded, making no comment about her visible pregnancy. Tell me about your experience. For the next hour, Olivia walked him through her portfolio. She showed him campaigns she'd designed for local businesses, a children's book she'd illustrated, and the award-winning branding she'd created for a regional coffee chain, work Nathan had often taken credit for in social settings. This is impressive, Theodore said, studying her coffee chain rebrand. Why haven't you pursued larger clients? Olivia hesitated. Nathan's career came first. We agreed that one of us should have a stable income while the other built a client base. It was supposed to be my turn next. Understanding flickered in Theodore's eyes. He seemed to read between the lines. Life rarely follows our carefully laid plans, does it? No, she said softly. It doesn't. Theodore closed her portfolio. I'd like to offer you the position, Ms. Spencer. We can discuss accommodations for your situation. My situation? He gestured vaguely toward her midsection. Maternity leave, flexible hours, work-from-home options when needed, Blackwood Enterprises. Values talent, and we understand that talented people have lives outside these walls. Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. She blinked them back, determined to remain professional. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. Theodore, please. He handed her a contract. Take this home, review it, and let me know your decision by Friday. The salary listed was double what she'd expected. With this income, she could keep her house, prepare for the baby, and begin rebuilding her life. Over the following weeks, Olivia threw herself into her new role. The creative team at Blackwood welcomed her expertise, and her ideas for the new product line, an eco-friendly home goods collection, were met with enthusiasm. Theodore often stopped by her office, offering suggestions or simply checking on her well-being. At 7 months pregnant, Olivia experienced a frightening episode of early contractions. The medical bills from her emergency room visit arrived with staggering numbers that her insurance only partially covered. These came for you, Theodore said one afternoon, placing an envelope on her desk. Inside were her medical bills, stamped. Paid in full. "I can't accept this," she said, finding him in his office later that day. "Consider it an advance on your performance bonus," he replied, without looking up from his computer. "The doctors said stress could trigger more contractions. Financial stress counts." "Why are you helping me like this?" Olivia asked, genuinely puzzled. Theodore finally looked up, his expression unreadable. "My sister was abandoned by her husband when she was pregnant with twins. No one helped her. I was too young, still in college. She lost one of the babies from stress-induced complications." He closed his laptop. "Sometimes people deserve better than what life hands them." Olivia nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. As her due date approached, Theodore insisted on arranging for a doula to help her through the delivery and early postpartum period. "You shouldn't be alone for this," he said simply when she tried to protest. The night before, her scheduled maternity leave began. Olivia found herself working late, trying to finalize details for the product launch. Theodore appeared in her doorway with 2 cups of herbal tea. "You should be home resting," he admonished gently. "I just want to make sure everything's perfect before I leave." He smiled. "It already is. The team can handle things from here." As they sat together reviewing her final designs, Olivia felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Not happiness. Not yet. But a quiet certainty that somehow she would get through this. Her baby would be born into a world where at least one person besides herself cared about their welfare. That night, as she drove home, her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "Heard you're working for Theodore Blackwood now. Convenient timing. What did you have to do to get that job?" Olivia deleted the message without responding and placed her hand on her belly, feeling her son kick against her palm. "We're going to be just fine," she whispered, and for the first time she actually believed it. New beginnings. The first cry of her newborn son shattered Olivia's world and rebuilt it in the same instant. After 18 hours of labor, Benjamin Thomas Spencer entered the world with a full head of dark hair and his mother's determined chin. "He's perfect," whispered Simone, the doula Theodore had arranged, as she placed the swaddled infant in Olivia's arms. Exhausted but overwhelmed with love, Olivia traced Benjamin's tiny features with her finger. His eyelids fluttered, revealing eyes that would eventually turn the same hazel as her own. Nothing in her life, not her career achievements, not her failed marriage, had prepared her for this moment. "Hello, Benjamin," she murmured. "We've been waiting for you." A soft knock at the door interrupted their first moments together. Theodore stood in the doorway holding a ridiculously large teddy bear and looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Is this a bad time?" he asked. Olivia shook her head, surprised but pleased by his visit. "Not at all. Come meet Benjamin." Theodore approached, cautiously placing the bear in a corner before coming to stand beside the bed. His expression softened as he gazed at the newborn. "He looks like you," he observed quietly. "Poor kid," Olivia joked, then winced as she shifted position. Theodore pulled up a chair. "How are you feeling?" "Like I just ran a marathon while being hit by a truck, but they say I'll forget all about it soon." "I doubt that," Theodore said with a smile. "You don't strike me as someone who forgets important things." Benjamin began to fuss, and Simone stepped in to help Olivia position him for his first feeding. Theodore discreetly excused himself, promising to check in the next day. The following weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and the strange new rhythm of life with a newborn. Olivia discovered reservoirs of strength she never knew she possessed. Benjamin proved to be a relatively easy baby, but the isolation of new motherhood sometimes felt overwhelming. Simone stayed for the first 2 weeks, her experienced presence a godsend as Olivia navigated breastfeeding challenges and postpartum recovery. Theodore called regularly, ostensibly to update her on work matters, but clearly checking on her well-being. 1 month after Benjamin's birth, Theodore arrived at her doorstep with a home-cooked meal and a proposal. "I have a property on Lake Washington," he explained as they sat at her kitchen table, while Benjamin slept nearby. "It's a guest house I rarely use, with its own entrance and complete privacy. It would be perfect for you and Benjamin, close enough to the office for when you're ready to return, but peaceful for these early months." Olivia set down her fork. "Theodore, that's incredibly generous, but—" "Before you refuse," he interrupted, gently, "consider the practical aspects. Your mortgage here is substantial. The guest house would be rent-free, allowing you to build savings for Benjamin's future. You'd have access to my housekeeper who's already offered to help with Benjamin, when needed." "Why?" Olivia asked directly. "Why do all this for us?" Theodore considered her question carefully. "Initially, it was about your talent. Blackwood needs someone with your vision." He paused, his expression softening. "But now, it's more than that. I admire your resilience, Olivia. And Benjamin deserves every advantage you can provide him." After careful consideration and a visit to the property, a stunning modern cottage nestled among towering cedars with a view of the lake, Olivia accepted his offer. She would rent out her house, providing additional income while preserving the option to return someday. Moving day arrived 6 weeks after Benjamin's birth. As Olivia supervised the movers, a familiar car pulled into her driveway. Nathan stepped out, looking tanned and polished in expensive clothes that must have been purchased with his new London salary. "I was in town for business," he said by way of greeting. "Thought I should meet my son." Olivia's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "You should have called first," Nathan shrugged. "Technically, I have parental rights." "Technically, you abandoned us both via text message," she countered, but led him inside where Benjamin was sleeping in his bassinet. Nathan stared at the baby with detached curiosity, making no move to hold him. "He looks like your father." "Yes, he does." An awkward silence stretched between them. "I heard you're living in Blackwood's guest house now," Nathan finally said, his tone insinuating. "People are talking." "People always talk," Olivia replied calmly. "Usually when they have nothing better to do with their lives." Nathan's expression hardened. "Vanessa and I are getting married next month. I want to make sure my son isn't being raised in some inappropriate arrangement." The anger Olivia had suppressed for months finally surfaced. "You lost the right to any opinion about our lives when you walked away. Benjamin and I are doing just fine without you. I can provide financial support," Nathan offered, as if doing her a favor. "We don't need your money." Benjamin chose that moment to wake, his hungry cries filling the room. Olivia lifted him expertly, cradling him against her shoulder. Nathan watched, discomfort evident on his face. "I should go. I'll have my lawyer contact you about a formal arrangement." After he left, Olivia held Benjamin close, inhaling his sweet baby scent. "That was your father," she whispered. "But you have me, and I promise that will always be enough." Later that afternoon, as the movers transported the last of their belongings to the guest house, Theodore arrived to help with the transition. He noticed Olivia's distracted demeanor immediately. "Everything all right?" he asked as they walked through the empty house for a final check. "Nathan stopped by. He wants to establish formal visitation." Theodore's expression remained neutral. "How do you feel about that?" "Conflicted. Benjamin deserves to know his father, but Nathan made it clear today that he sees him as an obligation, not a joy." Theodore nodded thoughtfully. "Children sense these things. Benjamin is fortunate to have a mother who sees him for the gift he is." As they stood on the porch of the house where her marriage had dissolved, Olivia felt a strange sense of closure. She handed Theodore the baby while she locked the door one final time. Watching him hold Benjamin with such natural care, something shifted in Olivia's heart. This man, who had asked for nothing in return for his kindness, had become more important to her than she was ready to admit. "Ready?" Theodore asked, gently returning Benjamin to her arms. Looking at her son, then at Theodore, Olivia nodded. "Yes," she said softly. "I think we are." Rising Phoenix. 3 years passed with the swift intensity of a dream. Benjamin grew from a curious infant into a bright, talkative toddler with an infectious laugh and his mother's artistic eye. The guest house had become a true home, filled with Benjamin's artwork, children's books, and the comfortable clutter of a life well lived. Olivia's career at Blackwood Enterprises had flourished beyond her expectations. The eco-friendly home goods line she'd designed had been so successful that Theodore had promoted her to creative director of the entire company. Her salary had more than doubled, allowing her to build substantial savings for Benjamin's future, while contributing a fair amount for the guest house, despite Theodore's continued protests. "It's not about the money," he'd explained when she insisted on paying rent after her first year. "It's about knowing you're both nearby." Their relationship had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated. Theodore had become a consistent presence in Benjamin's life, teaching him to swim in the lake during summer months, reading him bedtime stories when Olivia worked late, patiently answering the endless why questions that dominated Benjamin's third year. He wasn't trying to replace Nathan. He was simply being Theodore, genuine and present in ways Nathan had never managed even before his departure. For Olivia, Theodore had transformed from benefactor to friend to something more complicated. They'd never crossed professional boundaries, but the lingering glances and comfortable silences between them spoke of deeper feelings neither had put into words. On a crisp autumn morning, similar to the day Olivia had received Nathan's life-altering text 3 years earlier, she sat on her porch watching Benjamin chase fallen leaves while nursing her coffee. "He has your determination," Theodore observed, joining her with his own steaming mug. He'd taken to starting his mornings at the guest house before they all headed to their respective destinations. Benjamin to preschool, the adults to Blackwood, headquarters. "And your patience," Olivia replied with a smile. "He spent an hour yesterday arranging pine cones in perfect rows, just like you organize your desk." Theodore laughed. "Guilty as charged." His expression grew more serious. "Have you thought more about Nathan's latest proposal?" Nathan's involvement in Benjamin's life had been sporadic at best. After his marriage to Vanessa, he'd moved permanently to London, making occasional appearances via video calls on Benjamin's birthday and Christmas. Last month, he'd suddenly expressed interest in having Benjamin visit them in London for 2 weeks, without Olivia. "I'm still not comfortable with it," she admitted. "Benjamin barely knows him, and Vanessa has made it clear she's not interested in playing stepmother." Theodore nodded thoughtfully. "Your instincts about Benjamin have never been wrong, trust them." Their conversation was interrupted by Olivia's phone ringing. She didn't recognize the number, but answered anyway. "Mrs. Spencer, this is Diane Reynolds from Visionary Design magazine. Congratulations, your Blackwood Eco Home collection has been selected for our annual Innovation Award. We'd like to feature you in our December issue." Olivia nearly dropped her phone. Visionary was the most prestigious publication in the design industry, and their Innovation Award typically went to designers with decades of experience. After ending the call, she turned to Theodore with wide eyes. "Did you know about this?" He shook his head, his smile genuine. "Not a clue, but I'm not surprised. Your work deserves recognition." The magazine feature changed everything. Suddenly, Olivia Spencer was a name recognized throughout the design world. Job offers arrived from competing firms, each with impressive salaries and benefits. Social invitations poured in, including one to the Seattle Design Guild's annual charity gala, the most exclusive event in the regional design community. "You should go," Theodore encouraged when she hesitated over the invitation. "It's important. to establish yourself in these circles now that your work is getting the attention it deserves. What he didn't say was how this success might change things between them. As Olivia's star rose, Theodore maintained a respectful distance, seemingly prepared for her to outgrow the life they'd built in his orbit. The evening of the gala arrived, and Olivia stood in her bedroom staring at her reflection. The emerald gown she'd splurged on hugged her figure, so different now from the pregnant woman who had first entered Theodore's office 3 years ago. Her chestnut hair fell in loose waves past her shoulders, and the simple diamond pendant Theodore had given her for her last birthday gleamed at her throat. "Mommy, pretty," Benjamin declared from the doorway, where he stood in dinosaur pajamas beside his babysitter. "Thank you, sweet boy." She knelt carefully in her dress to hug him goodnight. "Be good for Jessica, okay? Mommy will be home before you wake up." "Will Theo read me a story tomorrow?" he asked hopefully. "If you ask him nicely, I'm sure he will." She kissed his forehead. "Sleep tight, my love." As her rideshare approached the venue, a historic mansion overlooking Puget Sound, Olivia's phone chimed with a text from Theodore. "You deserve every bit of recognition tonight. Enjoy your moment." The gala was as opulent as expected, with Seattle's design elite mingling among displays featuring the year's most celebrated work, including Olivia's. She accepted congratulations graciously, discussed potential collaborations with peers she'd long admired, and tried to silence the voice in her head that kept wondering what Theodore would think of each conversation. "Olivia Spencer, as I live." "And breathe." The familiar voice froze her mid-sip of champagne. She turned slowly to find Nathan standing before her, looking somewhat less polished than when she'd last seen him. Beside him stood a striking blonde woman wearing an expression of barely concealed boredom. Nathan. What a surprise. "I didn't realize you were back in Seattle." Olivia's voice remained steady despite her racing heart. "Just temporarily. Family business." His gaze traveled appreciatively over her gown. "You look different." "Successful," corrected the blonde with a brittle smile. "I'm Vanessa, Nathan's wife." Olivia nodded politely. "Yes, I remember. How's London treating you both?" "Not as well as Blackwood Enterprises is treating you, apparently," Nathan replied, a hint of bitterness creeping into his tone. "Creative director at 32? Living in Theodore Blackwood's guest house? You certainly landed on your feet after our separation." "After you abandoned your pregnant wife by text message," Vanessa corrected, surprising both Nathan and Olivia. "Let's not rewrite history, darling." She turned to Olivia. "Your work is exceptional, by the way. I've ordered several pieces from your collection for our London apartment." Before Olivia could respond, a warm hand pressed gently against the small of her back. Theodore stood beside her, impeccable in his tuxedo. "Sorry I'm late," he said smoothly, bending to kiss her cheek. The board meeting ran longer than expected. He extended his hand to Nathan. "Mr. Harrison, isn't it? We met briefly years ago." Nathan's expression tightened as he shook Theodore's hand. "Mr. Blackwood." "Yes, I remember." "And you must be Vanessa," Theodore continued pleasantly. "I hear congratulations are in order. Nathan's new position at your father's firm sounds quite promising." Vanessa's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, Father has been most generous with opportunities." An uncomfortable silence fell over the group until the event coordinator appeared at Olivia's elbow. "Ms. Spencer, they're ready for your acceptance speech." As Olivia took the stage minutes later, she gazed out at the sea of faces, industry leaders, potential clients, competitors. Her eyes found Theodore, standing at the back of the room, his expression filled with unmistakable pride. 3. "Years ago," she began, "I thought my life was ending when my marriage dissolved. I was pregnant, alone, and terrified of the future." She paused, letting the personal revelation sink in. "What I didn't realize was that sometimes we need to lose everything we thought we wanted to discover what we truly deserve. From his position, near the bar, Nathan shifted uncomfortably. This award isn't just recognition of a design concept, Olivia continued. It's validation of resilience, of believing in yourself when no one else does. She smiled directly at Theodore. Or when only one person does, which sometimes is enough. Later that evening, as Theodore drove them home along the moonlit lake shore, Olivia finally asked the question that had been on her mind for months. "What are we doing, Theodore?" He glanced at her briefly before returning his eyes to the road. "What do you mean?" Us. Benjamin adores you. She hesitated, then continued with newfound courage. "I've come to care for you in ways I never expected. But we've never defined what this is." Theodore pulled the car into the driveway of the main house and turned off the engine. In the silence that followed, he turned to face her fully. "I've been waiting," he said simply. "For what? For you to be ready? For you to trust that not every man will leave when things get difficult? For you to see your own worth clearly enough to believe that someone could love you not because they need you, but because they choose you?" Olivia's breath caught in her throat. "And now?" Theodore reached across the console to take her hand. "Now, Olivia Spencer, I'd very much like to court you properly, if you'll allow it. Not as your employer or Benjamin's friend, but as a man who has fallen completely in love with both of you." As the moonlight danced across the lake behind them, Olivia leaned across the space between them and pressed her lips to his, a phoenix finally rising from the ashes of her past, ready to embrace the future that had been waiting patiently for her all along. Full circle. The Seattle Children's Hospital Charity Gala was the most anticipated philanthropic event of the year. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the grand ballroom of the Four Seasons, where Seattle's elite gathered in their finest attire. At the center of it all stood Olivia Spencer Blackwood, radiant in a midnight blue gown, her hand resting comfortably in the crook of Theodore's arm. 5 years had passed since that moonlit confession in Theodore's car. 5 years of building something beautiful from the ruins of what came before. Their wedding 2 years ago had been intimate, just Benjamin, now 8, as ring-bearer, and a handful of close friends as witnesses. Theodore had formally adopted Benjamin the previous month, though he'd been the boy's father in every way that mattered for years. Blackwood Enterprises had expanded internationally under their joint leadership, with Olivia's creative vision complementing Theodore's business acumen. Their latest venture, a foundation providing grants to single parents pursuing creative careers, was the reason for their attendance tonight. "Mrs. Spencer Blackwood," a reporter approached, digital recorder in hand. "Your foundation is being honored tonight. What inspired its creation?" Olivia exchanged a warm glance with Theodore before answering. "Life rarely follows the path we expect. Sometimes we need a helping hand to bridge the gap between where we are and where we could be. Our foundation aims to be that bridge for talented individuals whose circumstances might otherwise prevent them from pursuing their creative dreams. And the requirement that recipients give back through mentorship once established? The cycle of support should never end," Theodore interjected. "We believe in creating ripples of opportunity." As the reporter moved on, Olivia scanned the crowded room, her designer's eye appreciating the elegant decorations. Her gaze halted on a familiar figure across the ballroom. Nathan stood near the bar, older now, his once confident posture slightly diminished. He was alone. Theodore followed her line of sight. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she assured him. "Just surprised to see him here." "I heard his divorce was finalized last month," Theodore said. Vanessa returned to London while he stayed to salvage what he could of his career. Olivia nodded thoughtfully. The gossip had reached her too. How Vanessa's father had withdrawn his support after Nathan's risky investment decisions had cost the company millions. How quickly Vanessa's affection had evaporated when Nathan no longer served her ambitions. I should say hello, Olivia decided. For Benjamin's sake. Nathan still sends birthday cards even if he rarely visits. Theodore squeezed her hand supportively. I'll check on the auction items while you talk. Olivia made her way across the ballroom, greeting acquaintances along the path. When she reached Nathan, his surprise was evident. Olivia, he said, setting down his whiskey. You look happy. She smiled genuinely. I am happy, Nathan. Very much so. He nodded, a flash of regret crossing his features. I saw the feature on your foundation in the business journal. It's impressive work. Thank you. How have you been? Nathan glanced down at his empty ring finger. Rebuilding, again, seems to be a pattern for me. He attempted a self-deprecating smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Benjamin must be what, 8 now? Just turned 8 last month. He's thriving. Top of his class, especially in art and science. He has Theodore's analytical mind and my creative instincts. At the mention of Theodore, Nathan's expression tightened momentarily. He's a lucky boy. 2 parents who adore him. 3, Olivia corrected gently. He knows you're his biological father. We've never hidden that from him. Nathan looked genuinely surprised. Even after everything? Children deserve the truth, delivered with kindness. Theodore agreed. She paused, considering her next words carefully. Benjamin has a school concert next Friday. He's playing cello, something he picked up from Theodore. You'd be welcome to attend if you're still in town. Nathan's eyes widened slightly. I'd like that if you're sure. We're sure. Benjamin should know all the people who care about him, even imperfectly. Their conversation was interrupted by the event coordinator announcing dinner. As they prepared to part ways, Nathan asked the question she sensed had been on his mind all evening. Do you ever wonder what might have happened if I hadn't left? Olivia considered this thoughtfully. I used to, in those early days when I was still pregnant and terrified. But now, she shook her head. We can't rewrite the past. Nathan, we can only learn from it. And you have no regrets? He pressed. Olivia's gaze drifted across the room to where Theodore stood chatting with the hospital's chief of pediatrics, his expression animated as he discussed their foundation's latest initiative. None, she said with absolute certainty. What happened between us was painful but necessary. It led me to where I was meant to be all along. Nathan nodded slowly. He's a good man, better than I was. It's not about better or worse, Olivia replied. It's about right. Theodore and I are right together. You and I weren't. As they parted ways, Olivia felt the final weight of her past lift from her shoulders. There was no anger left, no resentment, just gratitude for the unexpected path her life had taken. She rejoined Theodore as dinner was being served. Under the table, he took her hand. Everything okay? Perfect, she assured him. I invited him to Benjamin's concert next week. Theodore raised an eyebrow. Brave decision. Necessary one, she corrected. Benjamin deserves to know his history, even the complicated parts. Their conversation paused as the hospital director took the stage to begin the awards ceremony. Olivia only half listened to the introductory remarks, her mind drifting to the journey that had brought her here. She remembered that rainy autumn day when Nathan's text had shattered her world. The fear and desperation that had driven her to call Theodore. The moment in the hospital when she'd first held Benjamin. Theodore's unexpected proposal in his car. Their quiet wedding with Benjamin between them. Officially becoming the family. They'd already been in their hearts. And now, the director announced, it is my great pleasure to present the Humanitarian Impact Award to the Blackwood Spencer Foundation, represented by its founders, Theodore and Olivia Spencer Blackwood. The audience applauded as they made their way to the stage. Theodore, ever aware of Olivia's discomfort with public speaking, took the lead. "Thank you for this honor," he began. "When we established the foundation 3 years ago, we had a simple mission: to ensure that talent isn't wasted because of circumstance." He turned to Olivia, encouraging her to continue. She stepped forward, her confidence evident to everyone, who remembered the uncertain pregnant woman she'd once been. "Every person in this room has experienced moments when the path forward wasn't clear," she said. "For some, those moments are brief detours. For others, they become seemingly insurmountable obstacles." From the corner of her eye, she could see Nathan watching her intently. "Our foundation believes that with the right support at the right moment, obstacles become opportunities. Single parents with creative talents shouldn't have to choose between raising their children and pursuing their passions. They should be empowered to do both." As they accepted the Crystal Award together, a photographer captured the moment. Theodore and Olivia, hands clasped, faces illuminated with shared purpose. Later that evening, as their driver navigated the quiet streets toward home, Olivia rested her head on Theodore's shoulder. "I saw you talking with Nathan after the ceremony," she mentioned. Theodore nodded. "He wanted to thank us for including him in Benjamin's concert, and to apologize." "To you?" Olivia asked, surprised. "For underestimating you, for walking away from what he now realizes was the best part of his life." Theodore's arm tightened around her shoulders. "Though I can't say I'm sorry about how things turned out." Olivia smiled in the darkness of the car. "Nor am I." When they arrived home, the babysitter reported that Benjamin had fallen asleep hours ago after insisting on waiting up to hear about the award. They found him in his bedroom, surrounded by books and his beloved cello, his features peaceful in sleep. Theodore gently tucked the blanket more securely around the boy who had become his son in every way that mattered. Olivia watched from the doorway, her heart full beyond measure. Later, as they prepared for bed, Theodore pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "I was going to save this for our anniversary next month, but tonight seems right." Inside lay a pendant that matched, the one he'd given her years ago, but with 3 diamonds now instead of 1, representing their family of 3. "For new beginnings that keep beginning," he said as he fastened it around her neck. Olivia touched the diamonds thoughtfully. "When I was at my lowest point, pregnant, abandoned, terrified of the future, I never imagined I could be this happy." "That's the beauty of life," Theodore murmured, drawing her close. "We never know what waits around the corner. Sometimes it's heartbreak. Sometimes it's everything we never knew we needed." As they stood together in the moonlight filtering through their bedroom window, Olivia reflected on the unlikely journey that had brought them together, how the worst day of her life had ultimately led to her greatest happiness. What had once seemed like an ending had merely been the first step toward the beginning she was always meant to find. The circle was complete, from abandoned wife to cherished partner, from single mother to the heart of a family built on choice rather than obligation, from a woman who had lost her way to one who had found a path far more beautiful than she had ever dared to dream.